Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Lake. My name is Kelly and I'm your host. I apologize for the unexpected delay in recording this episode. I had plans. I think the last time I published a podcast was probably 6 weeks ago, and I had promised an update on my new craft room slash, well, I think I was calling it a creative studio. It's a yarn knitting room in the new house that we're in the process of moving into, and I just haven't been able to devote the time or energy to that. So I had delayed that, and then when it came time to do an update on what was happening in advance of Rhinebeck, I managed to lose my voice. And it was gone for a good 2 to 2.5 weeks. And it just started coming back, I would say last Thursday. Like I was able to talk a little bit while I was at Rhinebeck. So those of you who did see me, I definitely didn't sound normal, but at least I was probably audible. Definitely not good enough to record anything. And then last weekend, as soon as it started getting better, I had to leave town for a dance competition. And for those of you who don't know, my other passion, in addition to knitting, is ballroom dancing. And I am an amateur ballroom dancer. I dance what's called Pro-Am. So my partner is also my teacher, and he's a professional. And last week was my first competition with a new professional partner. So, and it was also a brand new style for me. It's called standard, or sometimes it's just called ballroom, but I know that can be confusing because some people think of ballroom dancing, and most people think of ballroom dancing as all of the styles together. So anyway, I was really excited about that. And I got a lot of knitting done also because I had some time between rounds. I'll throw up a funny picture that I took. I did manage to publish a reel on my Instagram as well. It's always nice when you have a little extra time to knit. So anyway, that's a really roundabout way of saying I'm finally here to do my Rhinebeck recap. And I know I'm probably a bit later than most other people are doing them, but as they say, better late than never. I also am probably going to be clearing my throat a lot. There you go. A lot more than normal because I am still getting over this laryngitis. So apologies if there is a little bit more editing and a little bit of crackling in my voice and water drinking, but I'll try to edit a lot of that out. All right, let me back up and just start with what I am wearing before we dig into all the Rhinebeck goodness. This is the Petals and Lace sweater. This was a project that I did as a test knit for the designer Erika, who is a good friend of mine here in the Boston area. And this was the first test knit that I did with Erika, and it was actually part of how we met one another. She's also part of my knitting group at the Unruly Stitch in Weston, Massachusetts. And so between that and this test knit is how we started getting to know each other. So this is a really cool pattern. As you can see, colorwork yoke, it's a combination of colorwork with lace, and even within the colorwork, there's texture, there's purling. So this is the first time I've ever done purling with stranded colorwork. So, it is a little bit different and it slows you down a bit, but it's only a very limited amount of rows that you're doing that. And I think it has a really, really beautiful result. The yarns that I used with this are the main color, the main yarn is Rowan felted tweed, and I can't remember the name of the color, but I'll put it down in the show notes. And the contrast color is Spincycle yarns dyed in the wool, and I think this is Afternoon Delight. I'm almost positive. I know it probably looks like I did some color management here, but this was actually the natural gradient and how everything worked out. I didn't cut the yarn at all. It just kind of worked out this way where it gradated perfectly between these 3 sections, so I consider myself fortunate. Anyway, I really loved making this pattern. It has tons of options without being overwhelming, and believe me, I am the first person to get overwhelmed by too much information in a pattern. I thought it was the perfect amount of information, and you can make long sleeves, different neckline, different ways to treat the hem, short rows, no short rows. I think there's options for bust shaping. I can't remember, but I didn't do that. I never really need to do that. So anyway, I wanted to make this partly, or not make it, I wanted to wear it partly as a thank you to Erika for mentioning me on her podcast last week. I'll talk about her a lot throughout this podcast because we did share part of our Rhinebeck experience together. But I know she also did mention me on her podcast, which is the Knit Kind podcast. Again, I will link that below as well. And she suggested to people that they come over to my channel to see my Rhinebeck recap. And of course, there was nothing there because I haven't recorded. I think she published hers on Monday of last week. So again, I'm behind, but we're gonna do it anyway. So just as an overview of what I had planned for Rhinebeck, I had a particular sweater that I wanted to make to wear to New York Sheep and Wool on Saturday, and that was the Lapponia sweater by, the pattern is by Veera Valimaki. And I did share my work in progress of that on the last episode. If you didn't see that, I think I had almost the yoke finished on that. And in terms of the events that I planned to go to, on Friday, it was a Woolen Affair and Untangled. A Woolen Affair is in Kingston, New York, and Untangled is in Saugerties. And then New York Sheep and Wool takes place Saturday, Sunday. I only went on Saturday, and I drove home on Sunday morning. So anyway, that's just the high level view. And I want to kind of start off by talking about the sweaters that I ended up making for Rhinebeck. I alluded to a sweater that I might cast on in addition to the Lapponia, which I did end up casting on. And not only did I cast it on, I finished it and was able to wear it to the events on Friday. So we'll start off by looking at those finished objects, and then we will transition to the acquisitions from all 3 of those events that I attended last weekend, or 2 weekends ago rather. All right, so first and foremost, I wanted to share the Lapponia. This was the sweater that I had kind of earmarked many months ago as the sweater I wanted to make for Rhinebeck. I don't really know why. It seemed like it was kind of a substantial project. It kind of exemplified the type of project that I really enjoy, the type of design that I really admire. And it gave me the opportunity to put together a color combination that I really loved. And another thing that I wanted to do was to wear a pattern that maybe was a little bit off the beaten path. A lot of people come to Rhinebeck wearing the same sweaters. Like a lot of people did the knit along with Andrea Mowry for the Ooey Gooey sweater, and every year there's a different pattern. It was really cool to see all the different iterations of that and all the different, all the creativity that people brought. For me personally, I just kind of wanted to do something different. So anyway, this is my Lapponia, my finished Lapponia. I'll put a picture up as well so that you can see it better. But the yarn, and I'll explain also like how I managed to make 2 sweaters in 5 weeks when I thought I wasn't even sure if I could make this one in that time. So this is a fingering weight sweater. The yarn is Sandnes Garn Tynn Pure Gynt, and the colorways are hopefully I can remember. Urban Chic, this is that gray green color. Arctic Ice, I think, is this light blue, and hopefully you can see. So this is like the funny thing. Hopefully you can see it's not white. See, my shirt is white. This is like a light blue. I'm going to do a whole episode on color, like the color effects and color principles that this sweater can help me explain. So anyway, that'll be sometime in the future. But anyway, the red color is called Puppy. So this sweater just really reminded me of skiing. You know, between this kind of design motif looking almost like, you know, downhill skis, and then the Swiss cross, you know, being like a ski patrol symbol, and then just using the red to really drive that home. This sweater, it's pretty fitted, and you know, it has some positive ease in the body, but the sleeves are relatively fitted. So I feel like this actually is a sweater that I could wear skiing. It was very warm at Rhinebeck at New York Sheep and Wool, which is when I wore it on Saturday. I really didn't need, I wore a shirt very much like this underneath. It did have like a higher neck, but I didn't wear a jacket at all, and I was never ever cold. You know, the layering of the yarns with the stranded colorwork definitely helps with the warmth factor, but this yarn definitely is a very warm, even though it's a light, you know, fingering weight. But the gauge, I think this is like a 26 stitches to 4 inches gauge. So it's a pretty tight gauge. You know, obviously you could go tighter for fingering weight, but so anyway, I cast this on 5 weeks before Rhinebeck. I did not know how long it was going to take me. I've never knit a full fingering weight sweater with long sleeves and color work. So I was not even sure I could get it done in 5 weeks. Well, after 1 week of pretty dedicated knitting, I had gotten like through the entire body. So I had everything except for the sleeves and the finishing work, obviously. So I started thinking, maybe if I'm gonna knit at this pace, maybe I could actually knit a new sweater to wear on Friday as well as Saturday. So there was another sweater that I had been pining for that, again, has been in the queue for a really long time. I've had the yarn. I've really been wanting to make it and just have been like kind of waiting for the right time. And this just seemed like the right time. So after a week of knitting on Lapponia, I casted on this other sweater, which I'm sorry about the wrinkles. I literally like pulled these out of my bag that I brought with me to Rhinebeck that I should have unpacked a while ago, but I didn't. So anyway, this is the Winter's Beach cardigan from, the pattern is from Andrea Mowry. And I will put up a picture so that you can see. So this is basically a, you know, cabled cardigan with pockets, and it just has an open front, no buttons. It's a combination of moss stitch and cabling. And then the best part is that at the end, you just get to do these stockinette sleeves, and that part goes really, really fast. The next best part I thought was the fact that you don't have to do any picking up of stitches along, you know, button band or the neck. You knit the band as you go on each side, like it creates itself as you go. So that's also really nice. So when you're done, you're done. So anyway, I started knitting this. Oh, by the way, this is in Rowan felted tweed yarn as well. The colorway of this is Vaseline green. So I started knitting on this. I knit on it for a week, and I would say I probably, no, excluding the pockets, because that was something I did last. I would say I got about maybe this far in a week. Maybe not quite that far, I don't know, but maybe this far up the body in a week. And I started doing the math in my head, like, maybe I can actually finish both of these sweaters by Rhinebeck. Certainly the priority was on Lapponia, and then, what does one do when you're on a deadline and you want to finish 2 sweaters? Cast on a sock, obviously. I mean, what else would you do? So let me explain. And obviously, wow, I'm matching. So I cast on this sock after spending 2 weeks knitting like a banshee on these 2 sweaters. I was thinking ahead of what I wanted to knit on when I was at Rhinebeck, and my first thought was a sock, something that's really small. It's not going to weigh a lot. I can carry it around and knit on it sort of mindlessly after, getting through a certain point. So I started knitting one pattern, and then I frogged it, and then I started knitting this other pattern. This is actually the Comfort Core sock, one of the versions of the Comfort Core sock, designed by Summer Lee. And so I spent a good part of a week knitting on this. I got to turn the heel, so that's how far I got. I went out one day to run some errands, and I came back to find that my dog had decided to take a little romp with my yarn. And so I sat down and I was gonna start untangling this, and then I realized that this was probably a sign from the universe that I should not continue to get distracted by this sock, but that I should probably go back to knitting on the sweaters if I really wanted to have them for Rhinebeck. So that's what I did. And obviously I still haven't untangled the yarn. So, that's a project for another day. When I went back to the sweaters, even though I was prioritizing Lapponia in theory, I couldn't all I wanted to do was knit on this. There's just something about the pattern, the kind of the rhythmic, I hadn't done cables in a while. So it was really nice to kind of work those and see those come to life in my hands. The yarn, the feel, this is one of my favorite yarns to work with. It's so soft and lofty and light, and the color is outstanding. As you can see, I love the color. Look, I mean, this was one of the reasons why I put these yarns together, thinking oh, this would be really cute with the sweater. Not like I'm gonna get socks done before Rhinebeck too. One can dream, right? So anyway, then I was just trying to do math in my head. I think I can still finish both, but I want to finish this one first because I just couldn't stop knitting on it. So I figured that I would need 3 to 4 days to finish the Lapponia, to do the sleeves and weave in the ends and to block it and wait for it to dry. Aggressive, but I thought it's still feasible. So I got this done completely on the schedule when I needed it to. I got it blocked. I love it. I absolutely love it. And then I finished the Lapponia, and then I actually got that done in probably 2.5 days. So I beat my schedule on that, and I was able to bring them both with me to Rhinebeck. So I'm really excited. I was able to put these together. I feel like I'm always learning and getting better at estimating how long things will take me. It's easier when something is just a plain stockinette pattern, but when it has a texture pattern or a colorwork pattern, it's a little bit harder for me. So just more data points in my database to have a better idea, because I'm always planning on, what projects I want to work on in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. And I like having deadlines, or fake deadlines, as it were, in some cases. So anyway, we'll move on, but I wanted to share that I'm so thrilled with the Rhinebeck sweaters that I made this year. All right, so we will start with Friday. So I used my home in the Berkshires as a home base for the festivals for Rhinebeck weekend, which is what I did last year as well. It's about, depending on the location of the event, it's between an hour and an hour 20-minute drive each way. So I really don't mind. It's a really beautiful drive, and that particular weekend is just about peak leaf peeping season. And the colors were definitely not as brilliant this year because of the weather that we've had in the Northeast. It was just a really dry summer, which was great for summer and our pool adventures, but not so great for fall foliage. But anyway, it was still really beautiful with a lot of nice views and amazing scenery. And anyway, so on Thursday night, we stayed in the Berkshires. Erika joined me, and she brought like a really nice little dinner with like wine and cheese and dips and really yummy crackers. And I made some apple crisp with some Cortland apples, which are my favorite apples. And so it kind of got us in a fall mood, and we did some knitting on Thursday night, talked about our, kind of the timing and our plans for Friday. And on Friday morning, we set out to go to a Woolen Affair. We had bought the all-day tickets for a Woolen Affair, and the location of that event was at the Hutton Brickyards. And again, I think that is in Kingston, New York. Just a really cool venue. I will put pictures and video up so you can see what like a festive setting it was, and obviously also see what a beautiful day we had. All right, I hope that gave you a good sense of what the overall vibe of the Woolen Affair was. This was really a really cool event to attend, and it was my first time going. I got there a little bit before Erika, and so I initially was planning to just wait, but then I got into where the vendor booths were and I started browsing immediately because things were catching my eye. And the very first thing that caught my eye was the Wandering Flock booth. I made a pretty quick purchase of these yarns. So these are, it's like a single ply fingering weight, superwash extra fine merino, and a mohair silk blend and lace weight. So there's one of each of those in both of these colors. The colors are called Poppy. So this Poppy is a little bit different than the Poppy that I showed you before. It's more of like a really vibrant orange. I don't know, Poppy to me is a little bit more red. I mean, certainly this is a reddish orange, but anyway, I'm splitting hairs, but I'm a color person. And then this one is called Dreamsicle, which I think is like the perfect color name for this color. And I love how the bases take the dyes just a little bit differently. So when you knit them together, like I would plan to carry the yarns together of the same color, they will just have a little bit more richness and a little more depth to them. And don't you just love these together? Isn't this going to be a beautiful combination? When I saw these, I immediately thought of a pattern that I didn't even have in my queue, and I just wasn't even really thinking about making. But seeing these kind of inspired me to say, oh, this would be amazing as a striped sweater. And the one that I remembered coming out recently is the Frankie Sweater by PetiteKnit. And so I looked that up in Ravelry, and I found out the yardage required for each, colorway and each type of yarn. So I bought a quantity needed to make a Frankie sweater. Now, sometimes plans change. I may end up making the Frankie sweater. I might end up doing something else, something similar. Most likely I will be making a striped sweater with this, most likely a pullover. But that is, again, this is from the Wandering Flock. This is my very first purchase at Woolen Affair. The next thing that I picked up at Woolen Affair before I met up with Erika was this adorable bag. I am a dog owner, I'm a dog lover, and the Yarn and Whiskey booth had a really big backdrop with this fabric on it, and so that immediately caught my eye and brought me in. And so I bought this project bag, and I haven't used it yet. I used it to carry home a lot of the yarn that I bought, but I think it's a really nice little medium size drawstring top, and I like that it has this handle rather than having to use the drawstrings as a handle, which sometimes is not like as comfortable. It has a little carrying handle, which is great. You could either drape it over your wrist, or if you were like knitting while walking or something like that. But anyway, this is from Yarn and Whiskey, and I guess it's called the Cozy Canines Satchel. And they told me that these were pictures that they made this fabric from pictures that their customers had sent them of their dogs. Another booth nearby that area was the Spincycle Yarns booth at a Woolen Affair. So they had a huge spread of all of their yarns. I think they also had Farmer's Daughter Fibers yarns on display. And I went there, I could have done some serious damage there, but I already have quite a bit of dyed in the wool and Dream State yarn in my stash. So I went looking for a very specific a very specific yarn, which was the plump yarn. I had this already in my stash. This colorway is Space Oddity. I could only get one because that's all they had in stock. And I realized it wasn't quite enough to make a hat. I would have been just a little bit short. And so I decided that I would find like a contrasting color of plump to make either the Gushy Garter Hat, which I've already made once in the Holy Toledo colorway of plump, or I would make the Harlow, I think it's called the Plumped Up Harlow. That's an Andrea Mowry pattern. And that one is done in brioche, 2-color brioche. So it's good if the colors are a little bit, if they're contrasting, like a light dark one. So I'm deciding between those two, but I picked up Ghost Ranch at the festival, and we'll see what what I end up making. But I'm kind of leaning toward making a Harlow because I haven't made one of those yet, and I do already have a Gushy Garter Hat, which is one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite hat to wear in terms of warmth, and it's a really easy and fun pattern to make as well. I realized in my enthusiasm to talk about all of the acquisitions, I didn't really talk at all about my shopping strategy. That's probably because I didn't have much of a strategy going in. I do try to think about, things that I might want or need. And I did have a list in my iPhone of, I think I broke things out by yarn weight. There were a couple specific projects that I went in looking for potentially, just as a framework to give me going in so that I can look at things with more of like a targeted eye. But I also want to be inspired by things. Like in the case of the Wandering Flock, I wasn't expecting to buy that. And the colors just spoke to me, and I knew that I wanted to figure something out for that. So I didn't have too many restrictions. I didn't really go in with a particular budget, and I didn't go in with a list of vendors that I wanted to hit up. I just went in more with like an open mind and a desire to like just experience the event and see what like tickles my fancy, I guess. So Erika introduced me to her friends at So Happy Jane at a Woolen Affair, and we spent quite a bit of time in their booth, and they were just so nice. And we went back. I think I ended up in there 3 different times during the day, and we at the second to last visit, I noticed that they did have this particular show special on some Surrey silk, brushed Surrey silk yarn. That was a really good value, and it's a beautiful color, this rose, like, I guess I would call that like a rose color. I think they call it Summer Crush. And they had on display in their booth a Lento sweater. So Lento is like a very popular, well-known pattern. It's a very basic pullover sweater, crew neck, done on pretty big needles. I think the pattern suggests a US size 10 needle. And the Surrey kind of fills in the spaces that would be there, and you knit it along with a fingering weight yarn. And they had some really interesting combinations between the colorways that they offered for this fingering weight yarn and the Surrey alpaca silk blend. And it was just like painting. It looked like painting with yarn. It was like kind of like alchemy, the way that these color combinations looked when you put them together, things that you would never think to put together. I decided to go with more of like a, I don't know, I didn't choose like a speckled yarn. I decided to go with this like tone on tone look. They did advise and show me that the Surrey color tends to be the dominant color because again, the fuzz tends to like fill in all of those like spaces that are created, because the weight of this would not really be like a typical gauge would not be on a size 10 needle. I would say this is more, you know, based on my experience, I've done a fingering weight with Surrey, and it's more of like probably like a size 7 or 8 would be a typical gauge. So like a worsted weight, coming out at a worsted weight. So this is putting it up to like a bulky weight. And you can do that with the Surrey because it can add that extra like fluff and bulk. So it's interesting. It just has a different, it's gonna have a different look than say the Melange sweater that I made, which I wore yesterday, by the way. Like, it is one of my favorite things to wear. I'll put a picture up. The look of that is more marled. This, I expect, if I do make the lento with this, I expect that it's going to be more like that you're gonna see this color a lot more sparsely. So I'm almost thinking it could almost look tweedy. So, but we'll see. Well, I really don't know what to expect. And for me, that's part of the fun of knitting, is that you can have like a happy surprise when you put different yarns together and hold them together. So we'll see. I plan to make the lento. Oh, by the way, this yarn is called Joyful Fingering, and it's called Decadence. The colorway is called Decadence. So this was my purchase from So Happy Jane. Obviously I have more of them. I'm just showing you these two. If you are familiar with Erika Field, she is very focused on farm yarn and supporting, you know, local yarn makers and farms, and she gets really into like sheep breeds and finding, you know, new makers and new suppliers to partner with for both her design business as well as just, you know, for her own personal knitting. And one of the booths that both of us got really excited about was new to us, called Distal Fink. And this was like also one of the hardest to pronounce. So forgive me if I ever do mispronounce it. So they had a really large booth. I think they had originally planned to share it with another vendor, but the other vendor wasn't able to make it. So they, I think, were able to bring a lot more inventory, which was a great bonus for all of us. I was really impressed with the quality of their yarn. So this is all from, as far as I know, this yarn is from their farm in Pennsylvania. I think it's Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and hand dyed. This is a non-superwash merino. I bought this in a sweaters quantity. The colorway, it's called Calliope DK, the DK weight, and it's dusty mauve. I don't have a particular plan for this yarn, but I did have on my little iPhone list the idea of getting another sweaters quantity or two in DK weight yarn so that I could have like something in my stash for one of those opportunistic knits, like a test knit, or you know, like I have this thing in my, this like unwritten rule for myself about test knits, that I really should have the yarn in stash if I am going to sign up for it. So therefore I need to have more yarn in my stash, right? I had used up some of my DK sweater quantities for other test knits, so I was running a little bit low. So I decided to, pick up this, and I'm gonna show up close so you can just see a little bit of this. You know, it's like a purpley, pinky color with a lot of like nice tonality there with some like grayish tones mixed in. But I think this is gonna make a beautiful sweater, and it's very soft. And like I said, also it's non-superwash. So that's gonna work really nicely for a variety of projects. Like it would be great for a textured, a textured sweater. So again, Distal Fink fiber, really big fan, really cool discovery. I mean, I didn't discover them. I'm sure a lot of other people knew about them already, but I'm really happy to know about them now. were a couple other little things that I picked up at a Woolen Affair. At the Amy Sher booth, she had some really beautiful buttons at the cash register. So Erika had bought some fiber there, and I decided that I was going to get these buttons. Oh, I think it might be open there. I don't want them to fall out, but these are some laser cut wood buttons. They kind of have that tumbling block pattern. And then these are, the material is wood with mother of pearl inlay. I just thought those were really unique. I've never seen any like that have the combination of wood and mother of pearl. So these are just for stash, not for anything in particular. I think they're going to be beautiful on a future cardigan. All right, I did almost forget about one other purchase that I made at a Woolen Affair, which was these skeins of, again, merino, but non-superwash merino, hand dyed from Little Fox yarn. So I was just taken with these colors. I put them together. The yarn is really soft and beautiful. It's a worsted weight. So I envisioned some kind of shawl or accessory. Each one of these skeins has 218 yards, 100 grams, and the yarn is called Fennec, by the way, these various colorways that I just thought would be beautiful together. I did not immediately find a pattern that would really work for these colors and these quantities, so perhaps this is like an opportunity to design something for myself and to self-draft a shawl pattern that might work. You know, maybe I should have bought like a neutral color, like an off-white or a gray or something to pair with these. But I just, again, I just got inspired by this combination. I can always go back and order some more if I need to, but, you know, maybe something will come along and I'll just knit a pattern, but, you know, this could be like a neat opportunity to take some of the ideas that I've been collecting over the past like year and a half, I would say, like all the little inspirations and whatnot, and you know, see if I can actually put a design together. All right, so after a Woolen Affair, we did spend quite a bit of time there, and not all shopping. Like we ate lunch, we hung out, we knit, we sat by the river. Like I'm sure I showed some of those pictures and videos already. We had a time slot at Untangled, which was at the very end of the day. So I believe it was like 4 to 5:30. So we arrived at Untangled already having like, you know, spent like a full day at a Woolen Affair. And it was definitely winding down. It was much less crowded than a Woolen Affair at that point anyway. And the thing that we immediately noticed is that all the bathrooms were out of order. Apparently there was some sort of water main break in the town, and it wasn't the fault of the venue at all. But it was definitely challenging because I arrived thinking like I was just going to go use the bathroom and then go shop. So it was definitely a test of my bladder fortitude, and I think I passed. I know I passed, but I did find the nearest Dunkin' Donuts as soon as we were done shopping, which was just slightly before 5:30, I would say. So we did, I would say, a more of a quick pass through, and obviously we had a lot less time at Untangled. For me, there were some vendors that I was really excited about and really excited to see. But on the whole, I just felt that the Untangled had a little bit of a different energy than a Woolen Affair. You know, Woolen Affair just really made, you know, with the music and the food trucks, and it just had a lot more of a festive atmosphere. And Untangled, while great, again, while having great vendors, it just seemed like more of a fair, you know, more of like a, you know, just a place to shop. There weren't like really any places to go and like, you know, enjoy a little relaxation or like have, you know, go sit and eat a little picnic lunch or knit on your project. It was more like come shop and then leave. So anyway, I did a little less purchasing at Untangled, and but I did buy a few things that I am really excited about. One of those things was another project bag, and then at that point I decided I did not need any more project bags, but I kind of like have a soft spot for a really adorable and functional project bag. And this one is in use right now, so there is a project in here. This is by Phil's Work, and this vendor is really interesting because she uses recycled, well, I guess you would say upcycled materials. So a lot of her project bags are actually made from old sweaters and shirts and different, you know, textiles that have been thrifted. And this one is a felted material. I don't know if you can see. I didn't want to, I liked the sweater ones a lot, but I was a little bit worried because of the way that I treat my bags that they would be prone to snagging. So I felt a little bit better about this felted one in terms of durability. She also does these straps that are from used belts. So this has like a little label on it, like Tahari, like this was a belt, which I think is really cool. And there's of course, you know, a nice lining in here, different fabric lining. There's a little interior pocket. So, you know, I just think this is a great little bag, and it could be a purse too. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily a project bag. I did also get the tote bag from Untangled. This is the commemorative 2025 tote bag. I remembered seeing last year's, I think Erika was carrying it around one day, and I was like, I really want one. And it's got that like enchanted forest book plate kind of look to it. And it's a really good bag. I carried it around with me for New York Sheep and Wool as well, because it's a good size, you know, for carrying all of your various purchases. Like many people, I am a sucker for the show special colorway because if I like it, I get really worried that I'm never going to be able to get it again because it's just for that specific show. And that was the case with this skein that I picked up. So I just picked up this single skein from the Red Pansy Yarn Studio. This was a show special or show exclusive colorway called Cozy Rainy Day. And you can see here, it says Cozy Rainy Day, Untangled 25. And, you know, it's this really pretty combination of like a minty green, or like, yeah, I would call it a light minty green with this ruddy red, like burnt, kind of like those burnt peanuts. You know what I'm talking about? That's the color that I am seeing here with these speckles and a little bit of variegation. I did not have any particular project in mind for this, but I now do have a project that I will be making, which is a test knit for Tori U. I'm going to make the Cityscape Mitts. That was a test knit that came across, and I jumped on it because I don't have any hand knit mittens that I have made for myself. My very first knitting project that I ever made was a pair of mittens. And I did make another pair of mittens shortly after that for myself. But this was back in like 2003, probably 2002, 2003. I have no idea where those are. So I think it's time. I think it is time to make a new pair. And so I'm going to be using this yarn, and I'm really excited to see how it knits up. Another single skein purchase that I made, again, for just the color way that just spoke to me, was this fingering weight skein from, oh, by the way, that other one was DK weight. So this one is fingering weight, and the colorway is called Oil Slick, which I thought was like a perfect, you know, if you think about the little rainbow that you see on the surface when there's like oil on water, and then they're separated and you see that little rainbow, but it's dark, you know, this is just like that. So you know, this is a nylon and wool blend, so this could potentially be a pair of like vanilla socks, or it could be like a one skein project for like a little shawlette or a scarf, or, you know, something of that nature. So I'm keeping an open mind about this. There's 463 yards, 100 grams. You know, this is from Casey Knits. They have beautiful hand-dyed yarns, and so I'm excited to try this one and have this in my stash. There was one project that I had on my list, my list that I was successful in finding yarn for, but I had to find it in two different places. So the first, because I needed two different kinds of yarn, and I only found one of them at the events on Friday at Untangled. North Bay Fiber was one of the vendors. I loved their booth. They had so many great things. I ended up picking up this Aran weight. This is a 100% Romney. This is their Journey yarn, and the color is Bayshore. This is, you know, all American wool, source spun, dyed in the US. It is a semi-worsted spun, so it's like somewhere between worsted and woolen spun. And this is going to be the main color of the Nordic Bloom vest, and that pattern is designed by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. And I needed a contrast color for this, but I didn't find anything at either Woolen Affair or Untangled, so that became a to-do for Rhinebeck. But this like steely blue color, I just thought would be a really beautiful thing to kind of work from. So I will soon show you with my Rhinebeck acquisitions what I got to pair with it. I did pick up a couple non-yarn things at Untangled as well. The vendor Kira Wiggins, she's a hand spinner. She has beautiful yarns, but she also had these ice dyed socks that I really thought were beautiful. And they're so soft. The colorway is called Jolly Rancher. I'm not exactly sure why, but I just really love this color combination. What I did not love when I got them home and found out that they're hand wash only, that was a little bit of a bummer. So I don't want to have to hand wash my socks. It's kind of depressing. Like even my hand knit socks I can put in the washing machine. So, you know, my one pair of hand knit socks that I have. I also had heard about, and I think I heard about it from Jen Geigley's podcast, is this balm from Ba Humble, and it's a hand salve. Is that how you say that? It's a balm. Pumpkin chai is the scent, and I don't know, I mean, you can't smell it, but I mean, it smells exactly like a combination of pumpkin spice and chai spices. And it's a nice balm. It works pretty well. My only complaint is that I think I need to like get it going a little bit more to have the balm be more pliable and easier to spread onto my hands, because right now I have to like kind of scrape it off with my fingernail. But that's a really nice, and it's really nice to use while you're knitting, and we're getting into the season of like cracked hands and, you know, dry skin, and there's nothing worse than dry skin catching on the yarn that you're knitting with. Like, it's really creepy. So keeping your hands moisturized is important, and hopefully this will be good, you know, as we get into that season here in the Northeast. All right, Rhinebeck days. I spent the whole day with Erika on Friday, and then on Saturday, Erika had stayed on Friday and Saturday night with another group of friends at an Airbnb much closer to the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, where the New York Sheep and Wool Festival is held. So we decided that we would like meet up kind of intermittently during the day on Saturday. She was also going to be going on Sunday. So, and again, because she's a designer, her agenda for the festival is a little bit different than mine. And so we decided, you know, part of the day we would hang out and part of the day we'd kind of go off on our own. So one of the first stops that I made was to the Hudson Valley, sorry, not the Hudson Valley Fibers booth, but it was the Battenkill booth. And they have a line called Hudson Valley Fibers. Last year I had bought this Mudna yarn. I think it's a DK weight yarn, pretty sure. Yeah, well, it's 20 stitches to 4 inches. So somewhere between a worsted weight and a DK weight. I had bought this with the intention of making like a vest, but then I just realized that I don't think this color is very complementary to wear in and of itself. So I thought maybe it would be good to get what I call a buddy yarn to go along with it to maybe make something in a stripe or some kind of color work pattern. So I bought, to go along with this gold, a blue, and it's a heathered or a tweedy color that has some of this gray color or grayish color with it as well. But I thought this would be a nice combination, different than anything that I kind of have in my wardrobe right now. So I picked up a couple of skeins of that blue, maybe 3. Did I buy 3? Yeah, so I should now have a sweater's quantity between those two colorways. And so we'll see what I end up doing with them. Something that I was thinking of would be something like a stripe hype sweater by Kutovakika. That could work. I know it's typically done with more of like a multicolor approach, but it could be kind of neat doing just like a 2-color version with these. I think it's the right weight, but I would have to double check the gauge. But anyway, that was one of my first stop was Bat and Kill, because I remember I really liked their booth last year. Speaking of vendors like Bat and Kill, another thing that we did at Rhinebeck and that I did do with Erika, as well as her friend and now my friend Ona Woolton, who's also a designer, who I was able to meet there and got to know a little bit. We all signed the pledge to make our Rhinebeck sweaters next year in local yarn. This is something that I think it's called the Hudson Valley Textile. I can't remember. I'll put it up on the screen, but they were having people sign a pledge. They were giving out like little buttons and badges. And so I think it's a really good idea to support local businesses and farm yarns. And I don't know what I'm going to make for Rhinebeck next year, but that was like an easy promise for me to make. So, yarns like this would definitely qualify. Anything local, I would consider anything in New England or even in like the Hudson Valley. So that was just a little aside. But yeah, there were a few other things that I bought that I do want to share. So but before I go too far down the line, I wanted to revisit that Nordic Bloom vest. I had been hoping to find something at Feederbrook Farm, and I did find it. It was not easy because the booth was extremely crowded, and by the way, the whole festival was extremely, extremely crowded on Saturday, and it did affect my experience a bit. I did cut my day short. I left, I think, around 2 o'clock because I was just completely overwhelmed and overstimulated. And I felt like I had gotten enough shopping done by that point, as you will, I'm sure, see by the time we get to the end of this, that I was good. I didn't really need to do any more. But there were whole buildings that I did not even go into because it was just too much. Anyway, Feederbrook has these color changing yarns, and they're a little bit different than like what you would get from like a Spincycle. So I wanted one that would have like a really good contrast with this steely blue. And these are actually the same colorway, believe it or not. The colorway is called Rad. This yarn is called, I don't know. It's called something chunky, but I don't remember the exact name, and it's not printed on the label. But anyway, it's that like, barber pole, like color changing yarn type thing. So anyway, this will be the contrast color for my Nordic Bloom. One of the reasons I want to make this is because it will be my first steeking project. And I thought it felt like a safer way to try steeking, to do it with like a bulkier yarn, as well as a vest versus like a sweater. So maybe just sort of mitigating my risk here, but I'm really excited to kind of undertake that and to learn a new skill. One of my favorite booths at Rhinebeck that I was able to, at New York Sheep and Wool, I should say, that I was able to like wedge myself into was the Sawkill Farm booth. So this is from sheep that are raised in Red Hook, New York, and the yarn is spun at Green Mountain Spinnery in Vermont. So this is local yarn. This could be my Rhinebeck sweater for next year. I bought a sweater's quantity of their 3-ply worsted, and this colorway is called Sky Heathered, and I just love, 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 love this colorway. It has this like moonstone, like, it's blue, but it's kind of like a little bit of a greenish blue. The yarn has a really like bouncy feel to it. It is 50% Sawkill Farm wool, 50% domestic merino. So that's like a really nice blend. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to make with this, but now I have the sweater's quantity of worsted weight in this beautiful heathered color. And so again, maybe some sort of test knit opportunity, or maybe I'll figure out another project that I want to make with it. One of the absolute craziest booths at New York Sheep and Wool on Saturday was Harrisville Designs. And they had things set up in a different way than most vendors, where they didn't put out all their inventory on display to kind of take one or take the quantity that you wanted. They had like a one of each, colorway for each particular type of yarn that they had. And you had to fill out an order form. And then they had this little area behind the curtain that was like vertically stacked. People had like ladders back there, so they'd take your order form and then pick your order behind the curtain, and then call your name when the order was ready. So I think that was the booth where I decided I was done, because it was just I'm a little bit claustrophobic, and just trying to get in there and place my order and then wait for my order and then buy the things. Like it was quite an experience, but I think it was worth it because I got this beautiful yarn. I've been wanting to try their Peace Fleece. This is 50% Navajo Rambouillet, 30% domestic fine wool, 20% mohair blend, and it is the lightest thing ever. And this particular colorway I was just really taken with. It's the main color, I would call it like maybe a grayish green color, but then it has all these little rainbow neps in it that I think will create a really fun sweater. And I believe this is, oh geez, I don't know if this is woolen spun or worsted spun, so I'm not going to talk about that. But it is another local yarn to love, and another DK weight sweaters quantity that I can make something really cool with. In the same building with Sawkill Farm, just a couple booths down, there was a booth for Soak, which is my favorite soap that I use for blocking and washing my hand knits. And they had another product there that I was not familiar with called Flatter. And they call it a starch-free smoothing spray. And so I was a little bit confused, and I continue to be a little bit confused about exactly what this is and what you use it for. So if you have ever used this, or what specifically it is to be used for in relation to hand knitting, if you could throw a comment below, I would really appreciate that. I bought it thinking it was sort of like a Febreze kind of thing, where you could like spray, and get a little bit of a refreshed garment in between washings, because as we know, we don't want to wash our knits too frequently. We really don't need to, especially if they're made from wool. But having like a kind of freshener seemed like an interesting idea. So I'm hoping that it can be used this way, but it seems to be referencing like steaming and whatnot. So, but it also says used to freshen fabrics between washings, or spray to reduce and help resist wrinkles. So yeah, I don't know. Tell me, have you used this? Do you like it? It smells really good. This is the yuzu scent. So they have such beautiful fragrances. All right, I am starting to run out of time here, so I need to go quickly. So I apologize that I've kind of been like accelerating my pace. I had one purchase that I did not make at a Woolen Affair that I was getting. I can't remember what the word is. It's not FOMO, but it's like when you regret not buying something and you can't stop thinking about it. So thankfully I had a second chance at New York Sheep and Wool, because this particular vendor was at both festivals, both events. So Fiber MacGyver vended at both a Woolen Affair and at New York Sheep and Wool, and they still had this amazing fluorescent red. I call this fluorescent red. I don't know what you would call it, or neon red. It's their Foxy, so I guess that's the colorway, Foxy, and the yarn base is called Shanico DK. It's 100% Shanico wool, 3-ply, 260 yards. It says grown, processed, spun in the USA. We know Fiber MacGyver is amazing dyers. They're wonderful people. And they also gave me things that I forgot to show, which were just little like freebies with purchase. They gave a little stitch stopper and some barber cord, which is a really nice thing. And I didn't even buy that much, just these 2 skeins. So that was really, really sweet and much appreciated. And I got to meet the botanical knitter Emily there, so that was really cool. It's just so fun to like meet people and make new connections. But for me, the headline of New York Sheep and Wool was, I was just overwhelmed, and I had a much more enjoyable time on Friday than I did on Saturday. I mean, I literally just bailed in the middle of the day. There were people that I was hoping to see that I just didn't get to see. You know, a lot of people end up going back on Sunday, and Erika went on Sunday and she was like, it was a totally different experience. It was so relaxing. It was so enjoyable. I just could not, I didn't have enough time to do both days. And you know, it's too bad. Maybe next year I'll figure something out where I'll just go to New York Sheep and Wool, or I'll go on Sunday, or perhaps maybe I will just go to all the events on Friday and I'll add Cake Palooza to my itinerary, which I did not do this year. So, you know, there's always different options, but I am very pleased with everything that I was able to pick up while I was at the festival, and, you know, already dreaming about all the projects that I'm going to make with this yarn. I also, funny enough, while I was at a Woolen Affair, I got a notification that my advent calendar from Spun Right Round landed on my doorstep. So I was just like, oh my gosh, just too much yarn, way too much yarn. But I have a plan for that advent. I will be sharing it on a future podcast. And I haven't opened anything yet, so I'm really excited for that kind of reveal. And I have 2 different ideas of what I want to do with that. And it's going to kind of depend on what the yarn actually looks like, of what I decide, what kind of project I decide to undertake. So the next time I am back with a podcast, I will talk about my works in progress and any finished objects. And I will also talk about my holiday knitting plans. And this is the time of year when I start kind of shifting gears into more of gift knitting. And what I have on my docket this year is a little bit different than what I had last year. And some of it is actually unfinished business from last Christmas season. That will be very good to kind of get off of the, off of the books and into the hands of the people that have been waiting patiently to receive their special hand-knit items. So thank you again for joining me for this frantic recap. Thank you for your patience and waiting for another episode to land while I recovered from my laryngitis. I did a little bit better than I expected. Hopefully, it wasn't too hard to listen to, and maybe next time I'll be back at 100%. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. I am still a very, very small podcast, very small indeed, but I'm so happy that you're here, and I love the little community that we're growing together. If you have any questions about anything that I have purchased or any questions about these events that I attended, I'd love to hear them in the comments. I'm happy to answer anything, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.